Hey guys, Happy New Year and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step tutorial on how to install a window. Now, this method is for new construction, but a lot of the techniques that I'm going to be showing you can also be applied to a remodel. So if you were to pull an old window out and install a new one, the only step that's going to be different is pretty much cutting out our window opening. So you'll notice that we don't have a hole here, and the reason we do that is to kind of protect the house and keep the elements out until our windows and doors actually arrive on site. A lot of times there's a lot of delays with materials, especially our windows and doors, so we leave this opening here covered up. That way we can keep all of the elements out. What we have to do is we have to go ahead and cut this out. There's a couple different ways that we can cut this out. One, we can snap chalk lines, do some measurements, take a lot of time, and cut it out with a circular saw. That's probably my least favorite method. The second method is you could take a Sawzall and take your blade and cut along the edges of your framing. That's probably my second option that I would go with. And then my third option, my most favorite option, the quickest option, is to use a router. Now this router has a spiral upcut bit on it, and it's got a bearing on it, and what that does is this bearing rides along the framing and gives us a nice crisp edge on our plywood. And that's what that looks like. I use the bigger battery on it just so it gives it a little bit more power. I have to bust a hole in the sheathing, that way I can get my router bit in there, so that way I can cut it out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go clockwise with this because we're riding along the inside. If we were riding along the outside, we would want to go counterclockwise. Just big enough to get my router bit in there. Now again, if you don't have a router with a fancy bit like I have, you can use one of those other methods. They work just as well. It's just I prefer this method over the others. We got this all cut out, and whenever we're doing these, we don't nail off our edges. That way one of our nails don't shoot out the side, and then our router bit hits those nails and dulls it. So we try to prolong the life of that bit because they're not cheap. So we're gonna go around and finish nailing this off and start preparing our rough opening. Okay, it's all taken care of. Now you might be thinking, Wyatt, what happens if water gets back behind our window and past all of our flashing? Well, what we like to do is take a piece of this cedar lap siding. You can see that it's bigger down here. So it's sloped, and we'll actually put this in here. That way, if water ever does get back behind our window and all of our flashing somehow, we have a slope. That way the water runs out. Because we don't tape our window on the bottom, that way water does have the ability to get out if it ever does get in there. So this is too wide for our sill, so I'm actually gonna rip this down to the proper depth. All right, got it ripped down. It fits good, so I'm just gonna tack it in with a couple roofing nails. It's good. All right, so we're gonna get our sill all taped up real nicely. Whenever I'm doing this, I like to do 2 rows of tape. I'll do this first initial row, then I'll come back and just widen this sill up a little bit, and I'll put a second row. Now we're gonna do our corners. So you could take this and put a piece here, put a piece there, and then try to do some weird stuff so you don't have a pinhole here that could let water in. So I don't like to do that. What I like to use is called stretch tape. And like the name implies, it stretches. This is really good for this application. A lot of other applications where you have just different angles that are meeting up. This is made by Huber. It goes with the zip system. You peel off this one side. Okay, got that in there roughly. Peel off this back side. As the name suggests, stretch tape, it stretches. So I like to start in the corner right here and just kind of work it out like that. Kind of rub it down that way it's not popping back up off you. And then just kind of work out all the bubbles in there. Now you don't need to stretch this stuff out super far, just enough to where it holds and gets all the wrinkles out. So you can see how that looks. And we'll do that on this side and this side. And you can see how we came up about 6 to 8 inches right here. Work it down there in that corner. And if you want to help you get a nice crisp corner in here, you can take your square and kind of shove it down in there like that. Give it a nice clean look. No extra unnecessary buildup. You gotta be careful. You don't want to put this paper under the tape where it's already secured here, because then it can be kind of difficult to pull off. I think I did it up here. Something like that. Kind of take your thumb like that. Just kind of work it in there. Something like that. Okay. Now you want to make sure you roll this stuff. All of the tape says roll a tape, so that's a good indication that you should roll the tape. The nice thing about this tool, if there's ever a warranty issue or whatever the case is, your inspector, it has Z's in it. That way, whoever's looking at it and inspecting it can see that you rolled it. Get that corner real nice. I don't put tape along these edges just because our window is going to cover here, and then we're going to tape over top of our window opening. So that's why I don't do these sides. I think if you wanted to, it's not going to hurt anything. Before we put the window in, we want to make sure that there's no nails sticking out, nothing that's going to affect the install, and we want to caulk it. I like to use big stretch. It's just my preferred caulking. So I'll go along the edges here. I like to keep it a little bit closer. That way we're not getting a bunch of caulking out here outside of the flange and it makes a big old mess. Now when you go to set your window, sometimes there's inconsistencies, the sill's not level, something. So I always like to just put 2 shims in here just to get it up off the sill. That way, when the person on the inside is trying to shimmy it around for us, they got a little bit of extra wiggle room in there, and then we can add extra shims as needed. And what we're gonna do whenever we set this in here is we're gonna try to center it in the opening as best we can. That way, if we add drywall in there or trim, everything is easier to measure off of, and it looks nice and consistent, and it's a better install. Okay. Now a person on the inside is measuring the reveal or the gap between our window and our framing. And they're going to tell me which way to move it, left or right.
tighten this up a little bit.
Now that we're centered in our opening, I'm going to check that we're level and plumb all the way around, and we're going to start tacking it up. Your right hand side needs to come up a little bit. Okay, that's good. And then we're going to check all the way around, make sure it opens, closes properly. We're going to check our diagonals to make sure that it's still going to work, all that good stuff. And then once we know that it works, we're going to tack all of this in. Open and close it. It's not opening and closing how we would prefer it to, so I'm going to check to make sure it's square, because that is a good indication for why something may not be working. 58 and a 16th. And this one's 58 and 3/16. So we're out of square an 1/8 of an inch. So both of my measurements are the same. They're both 58 and 1/8. So I'm gonna go down here. I'm just gonna tack in this bottom corner just to hold it in place. And then we're gonna check the operation one more time and make adjustments accordingly. And another good indication that your window is how it's supposed to be, it's nice and square, is if you look down here and your reveal is the same between your bottom sill and the bottom of your window, it should be the same. And if it is, that's another good indication that it's installed properly. Our window's opening and closing properly, it locks properly, so everything's good. So instead of going through and screwing everything in or taking a bunch of hand drive nails and risking hitting my window with my hammer, I'm going to take my roofing nailer and nail this off. It's a lot quicker, more efficient. So you can see how efficient and quick that is, and I didn't beat the heck out of my window, and it looks good. You'll see I didn't nail any of this. That way, if water needs to escape, it can. I didn't caulk that, I'm not taping that. My preferred flashing for windows is obviously the zip system tape. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna tape the sides first and then the top. That's important because you don't want to put this over your top and then water get back behind this and run all the way down. Most people call that method shingling. Just tap it in place, get it looking good. I'm gonna cut it to length. And you can start in the middle or wherever you want, whatever works best for you. And just kind of take your hand and get all the wrinkles and bubbles and all that stuff out. Just lightly press it in because we are going to come back and roll this. Same thing on this side. Again, just go down through here with your roller and roll everything down. So take your time on this. You don't want your window down the road leaking and causing issues on the inside, rotting out your framing. If you made it this far, thank you for watching the video. Subscribe, comment down below, and leave a like. Thanks guys, we'll catch you next one.